Assault. It's the one class I think that is in the weirdest spot when it comes to PvE. But in this video today, I want to show you how really putting Assault through the paces, testing out a lot of perks, I've finally gotten Assault to a point where it is pretty damn good. Now, it's not amazing. It does definitely have some weak points in it, especially when it comes to things like its jetpack and what have you, which we'll talk about throughout the entirety of the movie, this video. But what we're going to focus on here today is our perk tree. We're going to break this up for the first 8 levels, go to the next 8 levels, and the next 8 levels after that to give you a progression for your character. We're going to break down every single one of the weapons so you can see which one works best for you. And we'll close the video out kind of talking about some final lessons for Assault to allow you to succeed. But if this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge in my videos. So with that being said, here's the entire perk tree. If this is all you want to know, simply go ahead and pause the video, replicate it on your end, or take a look at it on your end. Whatever makes sense for you, you can just go ahead and take this and get going with it and try some stuff out. There are some things that you're going to want to know about this, but like I said, if you've been playing Assault tons and this is what you want to see, then please go ahead and take a look and shut the video down if that's all you wanted to know. Before you head out though, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe if this video does end up helping you, as that does help me out quite a bit. And also, I will be streaming this game on Twitch. I'll do tons of operations and multiplayer. You can find that linked in the description below. Lastly, if you've not yet picked up Space Marine 2, you can use my Fanatical link where you get a 12% discount and I get an 8% commission. And then that 8% commission immediately goes to my mini Australian Shepherds Vicious Treat Addiction. But let's get started here on the ultimate guide to Assault in Space Marine 2. Also, lastly, before we get started, feel free to jump ahead to any point of the video that interests you the most using the chapters in the timeline below. Starting us off, let's look at the first 8 levels of being an assaulter, whatever the hell. But first off, let's take a look up here, our class perk. So of course, it's a jump pack that enables enhanced dashes and powerful jumps, resulting in new combat moves. It's a ground pound. That's the combat move it results in. Starting perk is perfect dodge timing increases by 50%. I really want you to drive that point home, because perfect dodge is a very powerful capability that opens up gun strikes, and gun strikes are going to afford you tons of survivability in the latter levels of the assault. At the beginning, you're going to be like, oh, why is this good guy? It does get better, I promise. And this enables you to use weapons that are balance or block versus fencing all the time, to rely less on parry and more on perfect dodge, because there's so many synergistic perks that are associated with this class. I feel like that you just read like a corporate email. Let's go through the first 8 perks. Starting off here with Winged Fury, damage from melee attacks executed while sprinting or dashing increases by 25%. This is actually a really good first perk because you should be doing lots of dash attacks, meaning that you press the dodge button, then you press an attack, left mouse button, right bumper, whatever you've got it set to, and your character will do a sprinting or dash attack. Also, the sprint attack, right, where you just sprint and then attack. Both of these will get a 25% increase, and it's something that you'll do quite a bit because it does open up gun strikes that get your armor back, which is very huge. Auxiliary Arsenal, secondary weapons damage is increased by 15%. This is actually pretty good too. When you start off, you'll have the choice between, of course, a bolt pistol and a heavy bolt pistol. Use the heavy bolt pistol. It's really good. And getting 15% extra damage in it, it's fine, it's good, it's dandy. You don't need to jump into this one right away. I ended up taking this one when I just had a requisition surplus, because I really wasn't using my secondary weapon as much. As I got into higher difficulty though, because I wanted to interrupt anyone that's calling in reinforcements. In Ruthless, you can't fuck around. You get a reinforcement summoned on you, it might end the entire run. Next up, we have Perseverance. While performing charged attacks, you do not lose control upon taking heavy hits, and you cannot be knocked back. This is a bit of a trap. It seems very good, but you should not be sitting there charging your attacks, especially beyond the second difficulty. And moreover, when you are not knocked over by a heavy attack, what actually happens, especially if you're charging something up, your character just takes the damage of things around them instead, rather than being displaced and you get a chance to recalibrate and attack again. You're still going to take the damage regardless. This doesn't negate the damage. It just negates you from being knocked back and losing your charge. But like I said, charging up and then not getting knocked back and taking the damage is worse than just getting knocked back and just starting a new charge. You just take far less damage. It's fine in the beginning, but we're going to cycle off of it pretty soon. Next up is squad cohesion. You're not going to bother with any other team skill. All squad members' abilities recharge 10% faster. This includes your own, and it's just a really great capability across the entire team. If you are playing with another sniper who has the headshots that recover 10% faster, or any of the, I think there's one for heavy that does it. Everyone has some sort of way to really help out with ability charge, and you want that as a assault. You need your jump pack charges as much as possible. And in the beginning, you're going to be saying, I need this to be way faster because your jump pack charges are going to be your biggest shortcoming, but we'll get those online, don't worry. So we'll take this for team and we'll never move to anything else. Smiting Angel, ground pound's damage increases by 10%. It's a good little starter one. Might as well take it because this helps our ground pound. Remember, ground pound can be charged, so this will do more damage with a full charge of ground pound. But also keep in mind, if you're charging up a ground pound, you can be sniped out of the air by errant Tyrannid warriors with venom cannons? No, it's not a venom cannon. The sniper cannon, whatever. I know it's not a devourer. 20 plus years in the hobby, you think I'd know this shit. Wings of Flame. Jump pack dash damages enemies along its trajectory. It's not good in the beginning because you'll never use jump pack dash until, you'll use jump pack. You will not use jump pack dash until the end. And by the time you use it, we're going to use this perk anyway. So I would skip this entirely. I bought it solely for the video. So Wings of Flame, it is not good. Do not touch it. Pride and Duty, after a finisher, ground pound deals 25% more damage for 10 seconds. Now remember, a gun strike that kills something is a finisher. So if you were to do a dodge attack, kill a gaunt with a gun strike, jump into the air and slam back down, you get that 25% damage from ground pound. Couple it with this, that's 35% additional damage onto your ground pound. So definitely recommend this one. It's a great one to start. And I actually had trouble switching off of this one for the one at the very bottom. We'll talk about that later. Our next signature one is any use of jump pack reloads the equipped ranged weapon. You know, I bought it. You don't need to. It's, I guess, a nice to have, but both the bolt pistol and the heavy bolt pistol reload so disgustingly quick that I didn't look at this as like, oh man, this really changed my range DPS. Like, no, choose it or not. It's entirely up to you. You're not going to lose out on anything if you don't, and you're not going to gain a whole ton by taking it. So let's jump now into our next 8 perks. Starting at level 9, we'll look at Overcharge. Damage of charged attacks increases by 15%. Now, charge attacks don't need to be charged up very long. You can simply hold the button and get a pretty good amount of, just a couple frames will actually enable the full charge attack. It will not have as much as holding it down for a long time, but you get quite a bit of damage hike here. So you can take this for the 15% extra. This one, of course, you get the advantage of sprinting and dashing. I think, honestly, Winged Fury gives you more overall utility. This requires you to charge your attack. And I have not seen if this applies to a charged ground pound, which is technically a charged attack, but it's not because it's a ground pound. So I think Overcharge is cool in theory, but I'd rather just take the flat 25% for doing tons of dash attacks, which I'm going to do all the time anyway. Next up, we have Retribution. After you are grabbed or knocked back, you deal 15% more damage for 10 seconds. I like this one over the secondary because remember, our secondary is not really a massive source of damage. And this way, when we are knocked back, we do deal more damage. We can kind of get a little spicy with it. We can get a little retribution out of it. I said that forgetting that that's the class perk. I am not a wordsmith, not a smart man. Next one is Knowledge of the Enemy. Melee damage increases by 15% against Majoris or Extremist level enemies. We are definitely taking this because remember, Majoris is going to be your Tyrannid Warriors. It's going to be your Rubric Marines. So getting access to 15% flat damage increase on those is going to be very nice, and also Extremist too. So all the very annoying things that you deal with, it's nice just to have that overall damage. Next up in our team perks, all squad members deal 20% more melee damage against Terminus level enemies. These are enemies with the health bars. Your Neurothrope, your Carnifex, your Hellbrute. Not worth it in my case, in my opinion. It's 20% and it's only for melee. So if you're playing with a sniper and a tactical, it's not going to be too fun. And moreover, I like never want a melee Terminus, like ever. So you're just better off taking the 10% ability recharge. Next up is Hammer of Wrath. After a ground pound, you do not lose control upon taking heavy hits and you cannot be knocked back for 10 seconds. Again, this is a trap don't take it, because if you drop down into something and you're surrounded and it didn't do enough damage, it didn't knock things over, you're just going to take like 15 hits is what that's going to result in. Also, this conflicts with the damage bonus from Retribution. So I deliberately shut off Perseverance and I deliberately shut off Hammer of Wrath. We want to be able to take as much benefit of that as possible. That's also worth noting, right? Like, until you get the next level, Perseverance and these will cancel each other out, because this will prevent this from happening. So keep that in mind. Next up here, though, we have maneuverability. Jump pack recharges 20% faster. Take it. It's amazing until we get to the one right below it. It's just between these two perks, that's a 30% faster recharge on your jump pack. You absolutely need it. You're going to finally start to feel like your jump pack is more online than it is offline. I think that's actually not totally true, but you're going to feel like it's online more than it was before. 30% more, in fact. Next up, we have the Diligence. A fully prepared ground pound deals 20% more damage, but preparation time increases by 25%. I liked this. I really wanted this to work. I was using it in conjunction with this one, but 25% longer in the air is very dangerous in Retribution, in Ruthless, because you can get sniped out of the air very quickly. A full charge of a Diligence ground pound in conjunction with a sniper aiming at you at the second you jump in the air, the sniper wins. If you don't have Diligence, you can get your ground pound off before they can snipe you out of the air. That's huge. And honestly, I've learned to charge my ground pound up almost all the time, because the increased damage is huge and it gives you the chance to have pseudo iframes. Yes, you can be shot in the air, but if you're so quick about it with the charge, that Diligence slows you down and actually exposes you to a lot of damage. I do not recommend it. Next up here is Jump Pack Leap deals damage to all enemies in the takeoff area. I find that when I'm using Jump Pack Leap, it's to jump into combat or it's to maneuver to a different portion of the battlefield, less that I'm surrounded and I'm trying to get out of it. It actually causes openings where you will get hit if you try to jump pack when you're surrounded, and you'll cancel that. So this, I think, is a trap. It'll lead you to getting hit more than you should. Do not take it. So that is our next 8 perks. Let's finalize it with our final bottom of this tree with the last 8 perks. Starting with a real big one, Armor Reinforcement. Non-finisher gun strikes also restore armor. Take it. Remember, we're doing perfect dodges out the ass. We've got our ability to create our gun strikes through our dodge attacks, but also ground pounds create gun strikes. Using the slam on the Thunderhammer creates gun strikes. So this gives us the ability to restore our armor when we perfect dodge and don't kill something, like we're going to do tons of times on anything that's Majoris or higher. So this allows us to refuel our survivability quite a bit as the assault. You're now going to feel like you're not made of paper, starting with that perk. Next up here is Consecutive Execution. Killing 15 enemies in rapid succession restores equipment charged by 1. Cooldown is 2 minutes. A hard pass for me. Crack grenades are very good in this game, especially in Ruthless. It should be the thing that you focus on as assault. Take crack grenades if you don't have like a tactical who's willing to have good aim, because you are going to be pretty useless for neurothropes or xenothropes, and this is your chance to do damage with them with cracks. With that being said, though, killing 15 enemies in rapid succession is not that easy unless you're jumping directly into Gaunts or Minoris in general, and the cooldown's every 2 minutes. It's just not worth it, in my opinion. I'd rather have the damage increase whenever I get put into a bad situation. I think it's far more useful. Next up here is Active Attrition. Enemies hit by melee attacks take 10% more damage for 3 seconds. We're going to go with that one over this one because this is a 15% damage only to Majoris or Extremis. I'm losing 5% damage, but I'm applying it to everything I hit. So if I do a ground pound, or if I smash the ground with my hammer, anything that does any kind of AoE, or I just hit anything, they're just going to take 10% more damage. So this one overall helps you across all the enemies in the game. This is just a 15%. Both are fine. I think this one, though, is the better value because you just get more applications of it. Proven Efficiency is your last team ability. All squad members deal 50% more gun strike damage. Gun strikes are very good, but again, having 10% more ability recharge across the entire team is just so huge. That means your sniper can go in camo more. That means your Auspex is up more. That means your bowler can drop their banner to heal everyone if they need to. Your heavy can use their shield. And remember that the heavy has tons of capabilities that key off of having their shield active. And furthermore, when their shield is on regen, they do more damage. So you're helping the team out more with this than you are this. Because the gun strikes, yeah, sure, 50% more. Maybe that kills Tyranid Warriors a little bit faster, but you're going to have the ability to use your jump pack more often with the squad cohesion. Next up is Precision Strike. Now, this is where you're going to move off of our top lane one. Ground Pound deals 100% more damage, but its radius is reduced by 50%. It is such a huge damage spike that you can get a full charged Ground Pound onto a Tyranid Warrior with a follow-up attack, maybe two, and it will completely put them in execute. If someone auspecs a group and you drop it on the group of Tyranid Warriors, you'll kill them all. It is so fun and it makes you feel so impactful. Now you're starting to get a big power ramp. The next 3 perks are basically the slide into home. So next up we have Zealous Blow. A ground pound kill restores jump pack charges by 10%. Yeah, we're taking it. 5 gaunts killed is 50%. It allows you to keep your jump pack up far more often, and it allows you to use, finally, jump pack dodge. Before this, I don't touch jump pack dodge because jump pack dodge is a trap. It removes damage from your character. Jump pack dodge is great, but we don't get any value out of it until the next one. Aerial Grace. After a perfectly timed dodge using a jump pack dash, you deal 25% more damage. Wabam. Well, we're going to take it. But you know, at 24, I don't blame you for not taking it. I think at 24, stay up here. After a finisher, ground pound deals 25% more damage because you can wombo combo these together for a devastating amount of damage. But we will take Aerial Grace once we hit 25 because a perfectly timed dodge using a jump pack dash restores jump pack's ability charge. Now this becomes useful because a perfectly timed dodge using a jump pack dash, you'll do 25% more damage for 5 seconds. So you get the same benefit of this, just with not a finisher with a jump pack dash. And by doing the jump pack dash, it will immediately recharge an ability charge. It'll immediately recharge the jump pack. Jesus. So those two work so well together, especially in conjunction with this, because it's going to give you tons of charge. It is very fun. And this too, right? Because now our ground pound has a much higher chance of killing things. Ground pounding things that are executed is, well, executing things is great, right? It gives you your armor back. And if you've got contested health, it restores that health. If you don't have those situations though, this is a great way to actually restore your jump pack. Because if you go ahead and ground pound on a bunch of things that are ready to be executed, you get just 3-4 kills easy. That's 30-40%. It is a huge benefit. I cannot stress it enough. And finally, once you hit 25, finally, the assault starts to come into their own. And you get so much value out of that jump pack dash. Now, one thing I'll tell you though with jump pack dash that I've found, it does not look the same way a perfectly timed dodge is. When you perfectly dodge, or dodge perfectly, your character, like, time slows down. It's like, and you move out of the way, right? With a jump pack dash, time doesn't slow down. It might, but most of the times it doesn't. Keep an eye on your jump pack. It will actually replenish the charge. So it's very hard visually to tell if this works. You just kind of have to keep looking at your charges to see the timing on this, because if you go too early, it's not a perfect dodge. Using a jump pack dash, a perfectly timed dodge using a jump pack dash. So it's got to be those things in conjunction. It can't just be a jump pack dash. It's very confusing, but I promise once you really kind of put it through its paces, it becomes very easy to activate, especially with this 50% window, which seems to affect it. And it's easy just to get that jump pack constantly going, slamming it down, getting it back online, and just actually being a true powerhouse. For our weapons, let's start off with our secondary or our range weapon. And I'm going to talk about both bolt pistol and the heavy bolt pistol. I recommend the heavy bolt pistol, but I want to address both of them with, as little bias as possible so that you can decide what you want to use. I think the heavy bolt pistol just has more uses, but if you like the bolt pistol, fucking go with it. So our versions here, first one is what it is. Jumping into our second one though, I know the inclination is always to go with more ammo, but when it comes to mastercrafted, you're only getting 2 more shots. I'd rather go with a higher value shot. So if I look at this, my accuracy is 4+. Jumping to this, it's a 5+ with the same firepower increase. I'm going to go with that for our mastercrafted option because this gives me higher value shots. Because remember, accuracy affects two things: recoil and spread. And the spread on the bolt pistol is wild. I could have gone so many ways with the word spread, but I chose to keep it kind of PG for once. So I recommend that. Now, when we come to Artificer, though, I do like having 4 additional shots. So we're going to go with that. We're going to choose that over the accuracy here. This just gives us that many more shots. So that is more worth it to me than just 2. And into Relic, we're going to do the same thing here. Even though it's only 2 more, it's 6 more than the original, and we get quite a bit. If we were to go into the accuracy variant, we drop all the way back down to 12. And sure, our accuracy does become 7.5, but that 6 extra shots is definitely worth it. Now, the perk tree here, we're going to stick with the top to reduce our maximum spread. And after a perfectly timed dodge, the max spread is reduced. That's okay. Gunstrike, the equipped weapon instantly reloads. That's better. Max spread is also decreased by 10 here as well. The big thing that we want on both pistols is headshot damage. Remember, we can do tons of gun strikes via perfectly timed dodges. So headshot damage applies to gun strikes. So headshot damage is increased by 10%. We're going to take this little guy down here for magazine size increased by 15%. That'll give us just a couple more shots. And then we're going to go to after killing a Majoris level or higher enemy with a melee weapon, headshots deal 50% more damage. So you can chain this. You can do an execute, which is going to be with your melee weapon, will trigger 50% more headshot damage, which you then get a perfect dodge on something and you can go and get a gun strike. Or maybe you've had a gun strike before the execute and it's still there. You can get a gun strike. 50% more damage is quite a bit. It's not the big deal here. I just wanted to get over to this for 10% more headshot damage. So that is the name of the game. Tons of headshot damage with the bolt pistol. Now, the heavy bolt pistol is my favorite boy in the band. So we're going to start here with this one. And as we jump into the mastercrafted section, you have a choice between more damage, more ammo, or more accuracy. Again, this is only 2, so I'm going to go with more accuracy here because the spread on the heavy bolt pistol is quite wild. So I like to have a nice tight spread. And I know exactly what I just said out loud without hinting towards it, making this a weird Slaneshi video, but I'm not gonna beat me off on a bush. So going into the Artificer now, we get more firepower, more accuracy, but we're going to go definitely now with more magazine capacity. Because we're going from 8 all the way up to 12. It's just definitely worth it. And we're going to stick with that into Relic, going up an additional 2 here so that we are at a total of 14. 14 nice and crispy shots here that will knock things out of reinforcement quite easily if they are calling for it. Now, our perk tree is going to be the same overall style that we have with the bolt pistol. So max spread decrease, max spread decrease when you kill a Majoris level or higher with a melee weapon by 25%. Max spread decrease again. Going to jump down here for enemies at a distance of no more than 50 meters, take 10% more damage. This applies to gun strikes, and we are going to be up close and personal most of the time anyway, so might as well get the extra damage. And each shot penetrates 1 additional target. This is great, and it also just leads to where we want to go. Gun strike will instantly reload us here, which is great. And then headshots deal 10% more damage. Magazine size increase, 10 headshots deal 10% more damage. And lastly, when your health is below 30%, headshots deal 25% more damage. So this just means that we're in a dire situation. Our gun strikes are going to be far more effective to get our our armor back online. It's a real great situation to have here with the heavy bolt pistol. I love it. I think it's really awesome. Fits the class. It's very juicy. Quite enjoy it. Moving into our melee weapons, let's have some fun with the Chainsword. This one is actually a very enjoyable weapon for the class. I think a lot of people are going to jump into the Thunder Hammer, and I think the Thunder Hammer isn't good until it's really leveled up, which is true of every single weapon, but it's the perk tree that really gets the Thunder Hammer to the next level. And I think until then, until your character's a higher level, using the Chainsword or the Power Fist is not only viable, it's what I did. I didn't jump into the Thunder Fist, then to the Thunder Hammer until much later in the progression of my actual character. So starting here, especially if you've been playing a tactical or a vanguard or even a bulwark, someone that's been using and leveling the Chainsword, it's nice to come into the class with a leveled weapon to give you a little bit more punching power. So starting off here, we have the balanced weapon. It's great. We're going to move across not choosing the block into balance again. And then we have our first fencing. The fencing one is a lot slower, but you get a lot more strength. So just kind of keep that in mind. You are going to start to sacrifice that speed for that strength. If you're comfortable with your parry mechanics and your dodging capabilities, I'd actually recommend the balance one just to get better speed. Because yes, you want to be able to do a lot of damage, and that 11.5 does give you tons of damage, but honestly, being stuck in the slow animations of speed is of a slower chainsword is really detrimental. Chainsword, more than any other weapon in my personal experience, has a very funky parry lock, where if you miss the parry, your character kind of gets stuck in this like jammed up animation. Having a higher speed doesn't make it so that you parry faster or anything, but your character's animation time is quicker with a higher speed value. It's like a hidden little bit of something. It kind of like goes without saying, right? Like attacking with a higher speed weapon is obviously going to be faster, but that also frees you up animation wise to get out of bad situations. So I think for Artificer, I would go balance if I was confident in my parry and dodge capabilities. Otherwise, just go fencing and play it safe. Into Relic though, the fencing one is really good. 10 strength, 4 speed. The balance one is too slow. And the block one, yeah, you're going to get 4 more, but you know, block, the only time I'm confident using block in this game is with this character, because I'm going to rely so much more on my dodge than my parry. With that being said, I have over 100 hours in the game, and parry is ingrained in my muscle memory because I play Bulwark so much. So this is a personal skill issue. If you're confident in your dodge capability, I recommend that you do the block relic of all of the melee weapons, because the damage is magnified across your ground pound, and your ground pound is really going to get a lot of benefit off of this. In a perk tree though, we're going to stick pretty much with the top, going when your armor's full. I don't like that perk. I actually hate it. The next one though is the reason we're in the top row. Enemies hit by stomp deal 30% less damage. Melee damage increased by 5 and by 5. Then we're going to get stomp area of effect radius is increased by 50%. So these two work in conjunction. And then we have a 10% bonus to chaos, 10% bonus to tyrannid. While performing light combos, you take 15% less range. That's great and all. We're just trying to get to this. After performing a stomp, hold the attack button down to perform an additional stomp. So this just gives you a lot of really good AoE control. And the stomp now is got a 50% increased radius, and enemies hit by a deal 30% less damage. It gives you a lot more survivability. If you want, you can remove that melee damage and put it here. So melee damage against Majoris level enemies is increased by 10%. That's probably overall a better approach, because your biggest holdup as an assault is dealing with Majoris level enemies. So I would say it's really dealer's choice at that point. Of course, the weapon that we all want to talk about, it's the Thunderhammer. And the Thunderhammer is very tricky. It's super weak to begin with. You have to look at stats though, as strength, speed, cleaving potential. They are unique to the weapon. 4+ on a Thunderhammer is not the same as 5+ on a Chainsword. It's just a relative way to judge the individual weapons within their own category, not across each other. So you can't look at these values and compare them. But regardless, the Thunderhammer at the beginning is very weak, but you'll get up to Mastercrafted and feel quite good. The balance one is fine. The fencing one is not. I wouldn't touch it. I'd stick with balance. But I'll be honest, I leveled my Thunderhammer through Mastercrafted on the block variant. It was hard, but it got me to be better at perfect dodging. And that I think is the big benefit here. It has a huge cleaving potential, so it can pretty much hit things behind you with a full swing, which is really cool. And again, that strength is magnified on your ground pound. If you're using this and you're struggling and you're dying a ton, just switch back to balance. Don't be a hero. I did it plenty of times when I was just getting frustrated, but I was like, no, I got to get back to the block. The dodge is important, but stick with balance. You'll be just fine. Moving into Artificer, we have a good balance one. We have a good fencing one, but it's very slow, and a good balance one here, and a good block one here. I think you just go again with the balance one if you're not comfortable with your dodge. Otherwise, just throw fisticuffs and go block, baby. 10.5 strength with 6 cleaving potential and 3 up speed. You're going to be in a much better position. But again, just be confident in your dodge. Lastly, Relic. What a great video. I haven't even bought the last one to give me the last perk point, but cool video, dude. I actually really just like the fencing one. 10 plus strength, 3 plus speed, 4 cleaving potential. It does the job. I feel very tanky with it because it's very easy for me to parry. With that being said, the block one does give us more cleaving potential and a little bit more speed, which is nice. It doesn't give me a ton more damage though. So if you're confident in your dodge, go for it. I think, though, the fencing one is just fine, and it gives you plenty of defensive utility outside of the dodge, which becomes so much more useful when you're in Ruthless, where dodging is great and all, but having the ability also to parry is just, you just can't deny it, especially because it opens up gun strikes for us, right? So both these things are great. Just choose whichever one fits your playstyle. For our perk tree, we're going to be a little spicy here and pretty much go through the bottom. So we'll go melee damage increased by 5. Aftershock prep time is reduced by 30%. Not too huge. I don't like to use too much of the prep time. I like to kind of just go fisticuffs. Melee damage increased by 5%. And I'm missing a perk point. We're not going to put it up here. We're going to go into Ground Slam. Area of effect radius increases by 50%. This is Ground Slam from the hammer, not the ground pound that you get as assault. Just keep that in mind. Then we've got, after performing a ground slam, hold the attack button to perform an additional ground slam. This is from midway through a chain. So if you're doing a combo, you swing, you hold down, you slam, it'll go ahead and work twice. It'll work twice from neutral too, but it'll get derailed once we get to another perk I'm telling you about. But you'd use this in the middle of a combo, and you slam down with the hammer, and it will pick up again and slam again. It's really sick. Melee damage increased by 5, 10% damage against Tyranids. After killing 10 enemies in rapid succession with a light combo, you do not lose control. Whatever, I just took it to take it. But next, we have Aftershock gains additional spin. What this means is, when you hold down from neutral, you hold down that charge and you release it, your character will immediately smash it back down. It's different than this one, where they will do an additional ground slam. Aftershock is when you hold down from neutral. You don't need to hold it down for long. You can just hold it down for like a split second and release. Your character will go poof, poof. It is really sick. And it'll make that exact noise. It'll be me doing the sound effect for it. Next up, we have melee damage against Minoris increased by 20%. Then we're going to use that last perk point, which I of course don't have, for melee damage against Majoris increased by 10%. Because we want to be able to clear up more effectively, and we want to feel the impact of this weapon against Tyranid warriors a lot better. Otherwise, you're just going to be struggle bus. So trust me, this is really going to open up a ton of damage to you when you play in Ruthless. Into the Power Fist. Now, I use the Power Fist almost exclusively on my Bulwark and almost exclusively on Assault once I was disappointed with the Thunder Fist for so long. Once I leveled up the Thunder Fist, I kind of got the hang of it, but my Power Fist was leveled up on Bulwark, and it is really fun with Assault. It's really, really, really strong and fun and crunchy and good and enjoyable. So, Mastercrafted, we're going to take the balance version. The other one's a block version. Don't you dare touch it, because the block version doesn't give you more damage. I'm not going to go for more speed. Now, into the Artificer level, we're going to go with balance again, because I actually don't like the fencing one, because we don't get more damage, we just lose speed. We're not a defensive class, we're an offensive one. Our offense, or our defense, is in our ability to jump in the air and smash things apart. I think balance is the best way to go about it, and I think honestly the parry on the Power Fist is very easy to pull off compared to the majority of the other weapons in the game. You can go with the block if you want. Like I said, this comes down to your confidence in your dodge, but I don't like that it's a one-up speed. That's going to be really rough to deal with. So it's a cautionary tale there. I would just stick with balance. Into Relic, the balance one is good because it's just another 2 flat damage. The fencing one, though, is great. We're losing some cleaving potential, but we get tons of speed, tons of strength, and I do not like the block one because it completely tanks our strength. So the fencing one is really the way to go, and you're going to get tons of defensive utility from it. From, again, fencing being defensive, and fencing giving us parry and opening up gun strike. Into the perk tree, good lord, I'm having a mini stroke. The bottom is where we're going to go. I almost never take the top perk because I hate this. When you have full armor, melee damage increases by 10%. If you're not playing in the latter 2 difficulties, you will find that your armor will almost never be full, only when you open up an engagement. But melee damage increased by 5. Heavy attack prep time is reduced by 30%. This is okay. I never really fully charge it, but it's really just to get us to this. Melee damage increased by 5. And then when your health is below 30, a successful back fist 2 or thrust jab 2 attack restores 1 armor segment. I think this is attack hold to get the back fist too. I can't remember. I wish you could see the combos up here. It's part of the chain, and it's very easy to get to, and just free armor. Why not? Damage against Tyranids and Chaos 10%. Again, after a successful heavy attack, the next light attack deals 10% more damage. And I actually do find that I chain heavy and light attacks together quite a bit with the Power Fist, more so than I do with the Thunder Hammer. So this is quite a bit. This is actually a good perk. Then lastly, Power Wave forward distance increases from 4 to 8 meters on Thrust Jab, Back Fist, Hammer Hook, Back Fist 2, Thrust Jab. Pretty much everything except for Cannon Punch. Power Wave forward is what happens when you charge and release to do these abilities. It gives you a larger sweep in the AoE damage. It's really cool. But really the big thing here is I wanted to get to Majora Slayer for 10% more. Now you can go with Ground Shake. It's what I actually used to use with the Power Fist, but I found that it wasn't a big enough area of effect and it didn't do much damage. And I was only really using it on my Bulwark. I did not like using it on Assault. And even then I was like, you know what? I'm better off just getting more distance on the big Power Wave to try and knock something out of calling for reinforcements, or just to have a little bit of displacement on the battlefield. So it helps you quite a bit when you're playing as Assault. So we've gone through everything so far. Let me just talk about some core mechanics before I go into my core lessons and gameplay section of the video. Let me show you Aftershock. Remember, that's just hold down right button, and Ground Slam is right button and then hold down. So you can see how the perk manifests itself. Holding it down. You don't need to hold it down for long. I'm going to show you that in a second. So there is that. So that's Aftershock gets an additional whirl. That's the ladder perk in the line for the Thunder Hammer. The other one is we swing, we hold down again. We get that. Once you get both of these online, the character will feel truly destructive in close combat. Until then, it's pretty much you doing this. Getting as much of this going as you can to really get actual value. Now, we did talk about Aftershock, which is this. We talked about Ground Pound. You don't need to charge this up that long. This is how fast you can get this to go. Like, as soon as your other hand comes towards the haft, release the attack button. This is going to allow you to clear waves very quickly. You don't even need to, I'm barely holding this thing. And this is going to enable you to just completely crush through gaunts. It's absolutely huge. And I don't know why I threw a small Sean Connery on that. Absolutely huge. But outside of that is our charged ground slam. So let's jump in the air. And if you've not played PvE operations, Assault, you've only played PvP, this is about to freak you out. So small here will be our Vanna White. And I'll jump in the air. And I'll hold down immediately. And just let it hold down your attack button and angle your little cursor around and let it do its thing. As soon as you've found where you're going to drop, go ahead and drop, and it will take care of the rest. You don't need to release it. You just hold it down until you're good to go, and it will release automatically. So let's talk real quick about a perfect dodge. So let's see if we can get this to work here. We're fighting a sniper, and hopefully the bot doesn't mess us up. So we'll see. We have 2 charges right now. And we're going to just get interrupted. It's okay. It's okay. Come on. Come on, Bubba. No, do not shoot me. And see how we went from 1 to 2 at the bottom there. It didn't do the slowdown that it does for a normal dodge, right? So we just kind of, you just got to make sure that you just time it right enough and you'll get that perfect dodge. It'll go from 2 to 1. That time it slowed down. It doesn't always slow down. So just make sure you're using this properly. There we go. We went just way back up and we can jump back into, oh, we get completely dumpstered by that lick door. But still, my point remains, use that perfect dodge. It's going to help you out. So we went over all those lessons. I showed off how that perfect dodge works. We've talked about those weapons and everything like that. So what does this really kind of come around to? And with the Assault, you're taking the long road. And in a way that's different than the Sniper. The Sniper feels good faster than Assault does. Assault really takes level 22 or higher to feel passable. And furthermore, I think leveling Assault as the first class is going to be very punishing for you. Leveling it as a second or third that's already maybe got a leveled Bolt Pistol, a leveled Chainsword, or Power Fist is going to feel a little bit more accessible, so that by the time you hit those better power spikes with the class, you're going to feel stronger. But what are the big core lessons here? What do you have to be doing as Assault? And really, it's about that dodge. Jump pack dodge, perfect dodge. We've lined so many things up, talent-wise and weapon perk-wise, with headshot damage, with things that key off of gun strikes. So we want to make sure that we've got those gun strikes active as much as we can. And you, as the Assault, your role is basically that of disruption. That ground pound can, if you don't take the thing that reduces the radius, it's like the same shock radius as a frag grenade. It's a pretty substantial blast. But even with the radius reduction, charge that ground pound up and slam it home. Slam fuck things with that thunder hammer. It's the best thing about this class. And once you really get a pacing for that perfect dodge, you'll find that you're going to be in the air truly a lot more than you thought you were prior. Because prior to that, you're really trying to rely so much on a bunch of other factors to get your jump pack charges online. But use your jump pack charges as much as you can to deal alpha strike damage, especially to the back line that is going to be harder for your team to navigate. What I mean by that is, anytime you're fighting in Ruthless, especially Tyrannid Warriors with Devourers, which just completely chunk apart your health if like 2 or 3 of them land hits, or Snipers, both of them have just an insane range. And if you're playing against Chaos, try to use that ground pound on any flamers. Try to use it to get to Sorcerers, because remember, Sorcerers will bring the Rubric Marines back online. So shutting them down fast is going to be very helpful. You have the ability to deliver a lot of damage in a very concise location, more than any other class outside of course, the tacticals aspects and the last fusil of the sniper. But you don't need to be weapon dependent to do that, which is very cool, right? You can do that with a Chainsword, with a Power Fist, or with a Thunder Hammer. And you can do it pretty much at the drop of a hat. Of course, in the beginning, it will not feel that way, but eventually you'll have a point where, as long as you're keeping one charge online to bring your jump pack up, and I think too, the jump pack has a bit of a bug right now, where if you do the perfectly timed dodge and you have one charge and it would go to 0, it goes to 2. So it's a really nice capability. I don't know if it'll last like that forever, but right now it's what really enables you to be mobile on the battlefield, enable those perfect dodges, maybe utilize that 50%. And also, lastly, when it comes to equipment, try to focus on getting crack grenades. Melta is just going to be too tricky for you, because you're going to spend a lot of time activating it, and that's time that you're not dodging, that's time that you're not swinging, it's time that you're not up in the air. And frag's fine, but if you can get crack, that's going to be quite good, because you can get close enough to the distance. You can get close enough to the things that you need to crack faster than anyone can. Otherwise, it's going to be skill shot, right? Like if you're a tactical in the back line, you're like, oh man, I'm gonna chuck this crack. Hopefully I make it. You can go ahead and jet up right next to it. Maybe you can't ground pound it because it's a neurothrope or a zone thrope. You can go ahead and crack it pretty damn easily. So really think of that as your role with this class. You're very maneuverable. If you find that your heavy or your sniper or your tactical is overwhelmed, jump up in the air and ground slam right next to them. Slam fucks things apart. It's what you're really going to enjoy. And I think once you get down the perks towards the latter portions of your leveling and the perks on your weapons, you're going to find that this class can really take off. The Thunderhammer is punishing, but then it really gets good. And takeoff wasn't an intentional pun. I'm just not smart. So hopefully this helped you out in cracking the code of Assault and getting better at it. It took me so long. I think probably of my 100 hours, well, I think at this point it's 130. Of the 130 some odd hours I have in the game, I think 30 of them are on Assault trying to figure this crap out. And it wasn't until I finally maxed out the character and tried a bunch of different combinations of weapon perks that I found a formula that it works. So hopefully this works for you. And if you have a formula that really does work for you and you're getting tons of kills, you're not struggling in Ruthless, let me know. Everything I'm telling you is coming from the auspice that I'm assuming you're playing on difficulties 3 and 4, because that's what I play on now. And of course, you don't need to play on those levels to enjoy this game or this class. Play on the first 2 difficulties and you're going to be fine. You're going to have a lot of fun. So don't really worry about it. If you're like, well, I'm not doing Ruthless. Who gives a shit? Just have fun with the game you've got. You purchased it. Enjoy whatever you can. Maybe you got kids or whatever. Do whatever you got with whatever you got. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.